In today's age and through coronavirus and all the things that have been happening in the world, mental health has been becoming one of the biggest things that has impacted our community. Today's show, we're going to be speaking to someone who's passionate about helping people to find their way and to allow themselves to find faith. Hi, I'm Joey Buzzertle. On today's show, we're going to be speaking to Father Rob Galea. Hello, Father. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. It's so good to be able to talk to you. We're not far away from each other, but we're still zooming, socially distanced
Yeah, and we
right now.
have something in common. We're both Maltese, so that's really, really
Yeah.
cool. So, do I call you Father Rob or Father Galea? What's your preference?
Well, Father Rob, definitely over Father Galea.
Cool. Okay. So before we start, do you want to just, I guess, tell our audience, because I guess not everyone is Catholic. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, really short. I'm a priest, ordained in Malta, but I work in Bendigo as a priest. But I'm also a singer-songwriter and public speaker. I speak to about 1.6 million teenagers across the world every year. So I get to travel. Last year, 2019, actually, the year before,
Mm.
I got to fly over 300 times around the world. Because of the virus, I put everything online, and now I'm ministering to even more people, especially in the field of mental health. As a
Yeah.
teenager, I suffered from depression, still do, anxiety. I was suicidal, self-harmed, and so on and so
Wow.
forth. And so I have a passion, a real passion, to help, especially younger men and women, um, to find their hope and find their strength and find peace in spite of the struggles.
Yeah, I mean, luckily that you did go online because that's how I found you. Because I may not have found you if it wasn't for the online presence. Because sometimes there's all these amazing things you just don't know what's happening. Can I just ask, I guess, a bit of a personal question? Because I'm Catholic and I've never ever seen a priest like you, right? So I just
Yeah.
wanted to ask how did the community take you? Because you're so sort of different, which I love. But did you feel like you were received quite open armed, or was there people that sort of tried to get you to quieten it down a little bit?
No, look, I am part of the Sandhurst Diocese, which is extremely supportive of my ministry. And I think it's because they see the fruit that it is bearing. Now, I am a singer-songwriter. I write music. I'm signed with a record label, and I do tour as a musician. But that's not my priority. My priority is to help give a message of Jesus, to give a message of hope. And I will use anything I can. So social media, gym selfies, whatever it takes to
I
connect
know the gym
people.
selfies. You've got big guns, haven't you? Yeah,
Well,
that's the thing. The point I was making is that you have this personal life that a lot of um, priests, I guess, don't share, and that's what makes you more humanized. I think that's the calling is that part of you that is just human. So why do you think other priests don't do that, or like why do you think the church sometimes creates this sort of difference?
Well, I'd say there are two things. One is because very often priests were trained to suppress their humanity. They were trained not to show that because they are, and it's not only in the seminaries, but it was trained also by the people that elevated them, constantly elevated them, and thought that they were superhuman. Well, I think there's even my generation have come to realize that there's no benefit. We're not elevated. In fact, we're put down as priests. So um, that has created an opportunity for us to connect with our humanity.
Yeah.
Also, the second thing is that through science, even what I went through, I realized that I'm not doing anyone any favors by trying to be something I am not. So I think people need to connect. When people connect with God and with your message, they need to first connect with you, with your credibility, with your humanity, with your brokenness, and with also the way they are inspired by you.
Mm,
So this is where I start. I start from the human level, and then but don't leave it there.
yeah.
I take them to the
Mm.
message that
I mean,
I'm
I
speaking.
remember when I was about 9 years old, there was a priest that really, I was an altar boy, and there was a priest that was very similar to you, but he didn't stay there very long in our parish, unfortunately. So I didn't get to have the experience of, growing up with that energy. But I remember when he was there, it was a wonderful thing. It wasn't just about the Bible; it was about what you're talking about. So, do you find that that message that you're passing on is also translated through your music?
Absolutely. Look, all my music is about my human experience and my connection with people who are human. And for example, one of my latest singles is called 3 a.m. And it talks about my 2019, about my touring, about the lights, the glamour. It's about people giving attention. But at the end of the day, I still struggled with my depression. And I would
Mm.
get off the stage and cry, and get off the stage and just be alone in my hotel room and feel lonely. And so it just talks about waking up at 3 a.m. and just feeling empty.
Wow.
Even though I'm a Catholic, even though I have faith, even though I'm in a good place, in a faith place, but at the same time, also, I need community. I need people around me. I need the love of God. I need to remember to connect with the spiritual side of things, my relationship with God. So
Mm.
yes, so my humanity and my struggles certainly haven't stopped, and I never for one moment claim to have all the answers,
Mm.
but I do claim to know someone who does have all the answers, and that's where I need to spend my life pointing,
Mm.
and that's to God.
I mean, your energy online is very infectious. So I guess thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your mental health pathway. I mean, so how do you, as a priest, deal with your mental health? Is it just like everyone else? Do you see a therapist and meditate and all those things, or do you have other methods that you want to share with us?
Well, look, there are a number of pillars that I use in my life, especially that my life is so much on the go, and with the depression, with the anxiety. So there are certain things. I think one of the things that I've learned, especially with my lifestyle moving so fast, is to plan ahead. I cannot wait to get into a depression before I go to my therapist, or before I do. Yes, I do go and see a therapist. I do go to a psychologist regularly. I have a spiritual director, but there are four things that I do regularly, so to speak, religiously.
Mm.
The first is prayer,
Mm.
meditation. So that I do that every day, whether I feel like it or not. Sometimes I'm just staring at the wall. Sometimes it's a torture. I do that every day. Secondly is exercise. Same. I train every single day, whether I feel like it or not. And again, sometimes that's torture. Third thing is to make time for friends, to call people, even if I have nothing to say.
Mm.
Every day I call a friend, either in Malta, or I meet up with a friend here, or I catch up, I'll call. I make contacts with friends every day. So that's number three. And then the fourth thing is rest. To make sure that I'm getting time of leisure, of creativity, allowing myself to be creative. And
Yeah.
if I notice that these are the four things that will be the first thing that I want to give up, these four things, but I fight for them, and they actually keep me strong, even in if you've ever suffered from depression, that it goes in waves.
Yeah.
There are times where you at the bottom and you feel you're never going to get out, and
Yeah.
then on top and you feel invincible, but there's
Mm.
always that fear that you're going to get to the bottom again.
Mm.
But somehow these pillars have lessened the
Mm.
wave for me and
Well, it
allowed me
sounds
to
like
become more.
that those pillars are your proactive means rather than being reactive. So, a lot of people, I think, and especially men, they wait until they're depressed and it's really bad. Then they go and seek help. But what you're saying, and I have suffered anxiety, not depression. And I know that like I meditate every day for 2 hours because if I don't, I'll get anxiety. So, it's being proactive every day. You mentioned earlier about the glamour and the lights, and I know that you went on X Factor. So for you, I know that you said any means for you to get your message out there, which I think is great. How did you deal with that lifestyle? Like, did you just turn to prayer to help you to stay stable? Like, did you have? I guess did you have temptation in that world
Well,
of Hollywood, of stardom?
well, look, I still actually X Factor was in 2015, but now even though it's a niche, I get to sing in front of millions. Like last year, I sang in front of a crowd of 1.1 million. 200,000, 500,000. I go sing all around the world. But you see, at the end of the day, I think I'm at an age even now where I'm not drawn to the attention. I'm not drawn to the lights. um, I, and I know that what people see, what people idealize, and what people want a selfie with is actually not the me that's crying himself to sleep. It's not the me that is struggling. It's not the me that they don't know my joys. They don't
Yeah,
know my
it's like an image,
me.
isn't it? They want the image.
Exactly. And I think I've come to the point where I recognize that. So I've detached myself from, not from the person on the stage, but from the person that people um, sort of think me to be
Mm.
and imagine me to be.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Because you do speak or touch a lot of people, like, and this is a predominantly men's podcast, but we do speak to everyone. What do you think the main, troubles are for a lot of young men at the moment? Like, what are you hearing out there about, why men are committing suicide or why men are troubled? What's the main reason you think?
Two, I'd say first thing is isolation, is that we tend to isolate ourselves, not physically necessarily, but emotionally. That we don't talk, we don't speak to people. We're afraid to become vulnerable. We're afraid to be weak. And sometimes we reach a point where we break and then we're vulnerable and weak. And then there's a lot of shame that comes with that and a lot of hopelessness that comes with that. So I think number one is we as men need to learn to be vulnerable, need to learn to speak out, to find people, and not isolate ourselves emotionally, because it's the thing that it's like having a coal, on a fire, and you take one coal away and you put it away. Yes, it's on fire for a while, but eventually it will turn to dust. It needs the other fire. It
Mm,
needs community. So that's number one. Number two is as well in the pandemic that we have come to a place, where the isolation has sort of expanded, and even though we're surrounded with people, we've become less open. Um, but also that we've come face to face with ourselves, and very often we don't like what we see,
mm,
we don't like what we feel, we don't like what we're confronted with. And that I believe that if we allow ourselves to be loved authentically, unconditionally, one by God, two by the people around us, then we will be able to face ourselves, to love ourselves, to accept what we see, even though it is broken, even though it is incomplete, even though it is so far away from what we see the ideal selves to be.
mm. I'm really excited because that my whole mission with Secret Men's Business is exactly what you just said. So I feel sort of validated that I'm on the right path. Um,
You
do you feel that? Well, I guess I'm curious to know, how do you help the guys that turn around and not agree or not? There's a lot of guys that still feel that it's too hard or they get stuck, and I think it is. I personally think it is a male thing because some men are emotionally disconnected. So for you, I guess you're a priest, you have access. So is there a special thing that something secret that we can tell men? Because I feel like there's a lot of resistance still in my work. I get resistance from them. Like, what do you do, or what can you say that can help?
Well, look, I would say this, that sadly, that you cannot be helped if you don't want to be helped. Okay,
Yeah,
so I
true.
think, and when it came to my own experience, it's when I reached the end of myself that I needed to seek help. And sometimes, yes, we do need to reach the end of ourselves before we seek help, but it's a pity if we do that, because it's like you can't start saving money when you're in debt. You know what I mean? You have to. You
It's
need to
like, yeah,
plan.
like you said, you've got to be open to it, isn't it? Do you
Yes,
think
but
that
we
because of
also,
coronavirus, people are becoming more open?
well, people, yes, are becoming more open because they realize that they need community, they need others, but also they don't know where to find community. And this is where ministries like and work like yours needs to be loud, to because that's where you point people to community, you point people to gathering as a group. And one of the things I work very hard is to connect people with their local parishes. And many people say, "Oh, Father, can you come?" I don't know. In Queensland, someone just asked if I could do a baptism for them, because they watch me online. But you see the point. This is, even though it's not direct. I work really hard to connect them with their local, because they don't even know what is available in their local
Yeah.
community,
It's
and
like
there
you're
is
the
a lot
it's
of
like you're the
community.
face that opens the door to everyone else. It's exactly
Yes.
what I was saying earlier. I didn't know about you until I found you online. And because of you now, I've done way more research in regards to what's in my area. And you're totally
Mhm.
right, because if you don't know, you just don't know, and then what you do is you wait until you need it. But it's good to know that it's there all the time, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and there is a lot available, and maybe there isn't a men's discussion group, but maybe there's a in your local lake has a rowing club. I don't
Yeah.
know, just
Yeah.
something to connect with other people, and we need to connect with other people. Do something just for the sake of connection.
Yeah.
Sport. Some people are sporty, and they can. I'm sporty, but I'm terrible at group sports like soccer or anything like that. Football. Not good. So I go to the gym, I isolate myself, but because that's isolated, I need to make time for community. I
Yeah.
need to make time for sharing groups. I need to make time for things that allow me to connect with other human beings.
Yeah. Looking at your website, you do sort of advocate that dealing with a lot of the youth. Like, I'm not saying that they're bad, but like in my practice, because I'm a therapist, I do struggle with connecting or helping the younger generation to see things or to connect forward. Only because I guess I don't have access to a lot of them compared to you. So, what do you think? What's going on for the younger generation, the ones that feel hopeless? You know, like they feel like I've spoken to a lot of clients, and that word hopeless comes up. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to get a job. I don't know about the future, and I get stuck what to say except for you got to have faith. So what do you tell them, or how do you help them to see that there is a future?
Well, one of the things that I have, I speak at schools, so this is where I go. I go and speak, and I just seen an incredible thirst, a hunger amongst young people for a sense of belonging and for a sense of acceptance,
Oh,
because very
okay.
often they're not encouraged, they don't feel loved, and they do feel hopeless because there's no support system around them, and because parents are letting the kids do what they want and not trying so hard not to tell them what to do, and
Yeah.
so they end up lost. They do end up lost, and this is one of the many reasons. But I think one of the things that young people need, in particular, are role models. They need role models. They need people around them is that they can be inspired by, and this is where they're going to YouTube. But what's YouTube telling them? That they have to be millionaires and that they have to be famous and that
Yeah.
they
I
have
was
to
going to say,
have
like,
all.
social media is good, but it's also bad, isn't it?
Yes. So yeah. And so one of the things that I do is I always teach them how, and this I think it's an advantage for young people as well. I teach them how to pray. I teach them how to turn to a God who is always with them. I teach them how to love God and to let God love them. And so this is, I go and speak, but we have, like, our website has so many resources for these young people, online courses. We design curriculum stuff just for them to connect with a personal God as
Yeah.
well and with the community.
And if they don't believe, I mean, say the word God, right? Like I'm Catholic, so I understand. But if someone listening isn't Catholic, are they able to use another word? Like,
Yeah, of
could they
course.
use their own? Could they call it universe, or they can call it higher self, or
Well, look, I think first of all they need to be in connection with their created being, okay? So that with themselves, that they need to be in contact with themselves, but they also need to be connected with something transcendent. And I think that whether you believe or not, there is this desire for something bigger than yourself.
yeah,
Some people find it, for example, in social justice and helping people, helping the poor, helping those who are broken. And that's a very big, powerful thing that we can do in connecting with, I believe, God, whether you believe or not. I believe God, as a believer, I believe that when we connect with the poor, we are connecting with God.
mm,
And so it's about being transcended, looking beyond ourselves and establishing ourselves and finding hope for ourselves. Rather than finding hope for ourselves, let's make it our life's mission to give hope to others. And in the
yeah.
process, we'll find hope.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be really honest with you. Like, I was a big, Catholic church follower, and then I guess certain events in the church happened, and I decided to move away from the church and still believe in God. Now that I'm researching and I've met you, I feel a different pull. I'm sort of feeling a pull to another place, a good place. And it could be also my age. So are you finding that a lot of people are a little bit lost when it comes to what's been going on? And I don't want to go into details about what's happened in the church, but what you're talking about to me seems like the real message of the church. But yet there's all these other things in the background that has caused some people confusion. So what would you tell someone that is a little bit confused?
Well, I'd say the first thing is that the church is made of human beings. It's made up of messed up human beings, and they've messed up. And I'm myself, I'm a priest ordained when all of this started happening. And you can imagine like the pain and the confusion and the loss that also I went through. I became a priest to give hope to people, and then there were people in my position who literally used their position to destroy people, and
Yeah.
so I cannot fathom it. Okay, but at the same time, that doesn't change the fundamental truth of what the church stands for, and that is Jesus.
Mm.
Jesus, the resurrected Christ, and who is a God of love. Okay, and also the way that we transmit that love through the sacraments, that also hasn't changed. But yes, the hierarchy, the institution of it is messed up, but it doesn't change the fundamental fact that Jesus is present. For example, in the Catholic Church, we believe in the Eucharist, in the sacraments. God is objectively, in a sense, present
Yeah.
there. And that doesn't change because
No.
someone's messed up. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so for
and your
me,
message, I think, is also changing and bringing different people in, the young people versus, I guess, the political side of it. Because that's what I sort of call it. You know,
yes,
it's like when I think about the Vatican, sometimes I think it's like this big business. Well, you're bringing everything back to a ground roots, which, you know, even though you're seeing millions of people and touching a lot of lives, your message is very, very grassroots, which I love.
yes, because it's a, you see, there's a book in the Bible called the Book of Revelation, and there's a verse. It says this. It says, one thing I hold against you, and that is that you have forgotten your first love. And this is what the church has done. It's forgotten their first love, and their first love is Jesus, the person, Jesus Christ. And instead, they fell in love with power, they fell in love with security, they fell in love with their sin, they fell in love with the hierarchy and the institution. When Jesus says, "No, no, no, hold on, your first love is me."
Mm.
And in that, loving the poor, loving the broken, giving generously and extravagantly. And instead, we've maintained, as an institution, maintained control instead of giving
Mm.
extravagantly.
Do you think that they're listening, that they listen and understand your message, and do you believe that it will change? Is it
Well,
evolving?
well, I'd say 99% of the church is on this is on the right track. It's this 1%, or let's
Oh,
say it's 5%.
yeah.
And they are, this 5% is very loud, but the church, including the Pope, is so much wanting to bring us back to this first love, you know. But
Mm,
it's really hard because those 5%, 3%, 1% are very powerful, and they're
yeah.
very loud, and they're very corrupt, and it's really difficult, and it will be a while until hopefully we come to our knees again, recognizing that we
Mm,
need God.
mm.
So
Because,
I'm very
you know, that
hopeful.
whole coming back, like you said, would really help mental health, wouldn't it?
Oh
It
my
would really teach people about all the things, because I think that there was a bit of a shift in the world. Something happened. I can't really put my finger and call it what it is, but I think either technology or, you know, how you said before that parents are letting kids do what they want. Like, you know, I don't remember how it happened, but I remember my parents wouldn't let me do what I wanted, and then all of a sudden, as I grew older, I noticed my nephews and nieces were doing what they wanted. So there was a shift. So it's sort of, in a way, we don't want to like stop that. But we just want to bring back the values that sometimes I think we forget.
Yes, because you see, the values have lost their glamour, have lost because we've lost the heart of the value, because we've lost the heart of love, and it doesn't pay you to have values if you're selfish, if you want to build yourself. But if
Mm.
you understand that values are there to build others and to build community and ultimately to build yourself, then just we're not spending time understanding the values that.
Yeah, I love your message. Just before we finish, like, what message would you give our listeners around the world about 2021? What would you tell them in regards to how they should see 2021, especially after
Well,
2020?
yes. Well, I would just say this. I'd say this, that 2020 and 2021, the whether it's a good year or a bad year for you does not depend on the circumstances. Now, whether you have another 6 months of lockdown or we have the vaccine comes through and we're free again, that doesn't make a year a bad year, or a second. What makes something good or bad is your attitude towards things. Now,
Yes.
there is always opportunity, and again, with mental health, it is really hard. It is really hard. But I think if we set our pillars, if we set ourselves a structure and understand that the 2020 cannot make us, it's not going to make us bad or good, or 2021, but it is our attitude,
Yeah.
the greatest attitude we can have is that attitude of gratitude, being thankful for everything we have and learning to be thankful and grateful, even for lockdown, even for failed businesses, which is crazy to think about this, because I believe that if you have a good, positive attitude, that even failure, what seems like failure, will end up giving you peace and success if you're able to stop long enough and be grateful long enough, and again to trust God enough in these
Yeah,
situations.
thank you. Like that's exactly what I did because I had a really good 2020, and a lot of my friends found me to be weird. Like they're saying, "What are you talking about?" And I personally, I think created the most ever in 2020 because I was actually able to accept and just adapt. And I did that very, very early. I did that at the end of February, and it really, you're right. Everything is got to do with the way that you see it. If you get caught up in the drama on television and all that, then your life becomes like that. Before we go, I need to ask you this one final question, and it is: how do you find Australia? Like, I know you've been here for a while, but
Mhm.
Malta is our homeland, and it's so beautiful. So, you know, did you find Australia as beautiful, or do you now call Australia home?
Well, Australia is definitely home. I've lived here 15 years, and I just love this place. All my family live in Malta. I don't have family here, so I really do miss my family
Was there a
all in
reason why
Malta.
you chose Australia?
Well, I came here for a gap year, and then the bishop here asked me to stay on, and I stayed
Right.
on, and I just fell in love with the people, fell in love with the place. I love Australia. I can't imagine living anywhere else, even though I travel. Last year, I spent over 300 days out of the country, but it just this is my place. This is my home. This is where I
And
think
yeah.
I want to be
And we're
buried.
glad to have you. Father Rob, thank you so much. I know that you're busy. I know that this was, you know, hard to get your time and all that. And I really, really, with the bottom of my heart, appreciate you spending some time with us this morning. And I wish you all the best with everything that you endeavor to do in 2021.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be on the show.
Okay. See you later. You've been listening to the Secret Men's Business podcast. Now, be mindful the podcast is out every Monday and Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. You can either watch the podcast on SMB TV YouTube channel, or you can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Podomatic, iTunes, Amazon Music, or Google Player. Okay, so have a great week, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.